Elon Musk, I show you the original world map they didn't want you to see. Imagine a map so ancient it reveals the world as it appeared during the last ice age, with coastlines and continents we'd never expect to see on such old charts. It even includes places like Antarctica, not as the frozen wasteland we know today, but as a lush, green landmass that might have been habitable. This enigmatic map, along with others like the Piri Reis map, suggests that thousands of years ago, someone may have possessed the technology to map the world with incredible accuracy. And here's where things get even more intriguing. Elon Musk, of all people, appears captivated by these ancient maps. He's asking questions that challenge the conventional narrative, wondering if humanity has lost an essential part of its history along the way. Could it be that an advanced civilization once existed long before ours, sailing vast oceans and charting the globe with remarkable precision? And if so, why is this knowledge absent from our history books? Part 1. Uncovering the hidden map of the world's past. Alright, picture this. We think we've got history all figured out, right? We believe we've uncovered the biggest mysteries of the past, with only a few fragments left to piece together. But then, every so often, something surfaces, almost as if to remind us that maybe we don't know as much as we think. That's exactly what happened when Joe Rogan hosted Graham Hancock on his podcast. They delved into a mind-blowing discussion about ancient civilizations, forgotten maps, and extraordinary seafaring journeys that may have taken place long before the timeline of modern history was ever established. Now, you might wonder, what does Elon Musk have to do with this? Well, Musk is fascinated by ancient mysteries and lost knowledge. Think of him as a real-life Indiana Jones, but with spaceships and rockets instead of whips and hats. And in this wild world of uncovering secrets, Musk is the guy who isn't afraid to look beyond the accepted story. He's intrigued by the idea that our ancient ancestors might have known way more about the world than we're typically taught. It's almost as if he's saying, hey, here's the world map they didn't want you to see. Let's open up history and look at it differently. So let's start by setting the stage with something called the Polynesian expansion. This part of history is pretty amazing on its own. Archaeologists say that this was humanity's first big seafaring adventure, which happened around 3,000 to 3,500 years ago. Imagine this. Polynesians, these incredible ocean navigators, were out there crossing thousands of miles of open ocean without GPS, without compasses. They managed to find remote islands like Easter Island, which is out there, like really out there, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Easter Island is about 2,000 miles from the coast of South America and another 2,000 miles from Tahiti. It's a little dot in the vast ocean, but somehow the Polynesians found it, settled on it, and even made repeated voyages back and forth. That's a feat that still boggles the mind. But here's where things get even more interesting. Graham Hancock, the guest on Rogan's show, brings up a pretty big question. What if these Polynesian voyages weren't the first major ocean-crossing journeys in human history? Archaeologists generally accept that large-scale ocean voyaging began with the Polynesians, and they hold on to that idea pretty tightly. But Hancock isn't so sure. He thinks there's a good chance that humans were crossing oceans way before the Polynesians, maybe even during the last ice age. Now, Hancock's theory isn't just based on a gut feeling. He points to something pretty compelling: DNA evidence from the Amazon. Apparently, there's DNA in South American populations that suggests contact with populations across the ocean long before anyone thought it possible. Instead of brushing this evidence aside, Hancock believes we should seriously consider what it means. Could it suggest that there was a whole culture of global navigators who were crossing oceans back in the Ice Age? And if so, who were they, and why don't we know more about them? Alright, so let's talk maps for a second, because maps play a huge role in this mystery. You see, ancient maps could hold clues to this lost culture of seafarers. Hancock talks about this mysterious collection of maps that show the world not as it looks today, but as it would have appeared thousands of years ago during the last ice age. These maps were drawn between the 1300s and 1700s, which isn't all that ancient. But here's the kicker. These maps seem to be based on even older sources, maps that have since been lost to history. One of the most famous of these is the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis. This map shows parts of the world with shocking accuracy, including the coastlines of South America, North America, and Africa. What's left of the Piri Reis map is just a fragment, but it's clear that it was once a world map. The mapmaker, Piri Reis, wrote on the map itself that he based it on over 100 ancient sources, some of which supposedly came from the Library of Alexandria. Imagine that, the Library of Alexandria, which was destroyed ages ago, might have held maps showing the world as it looked during the Ice Age. And somehow, some of these maps survived, hidden in Constantinople, where Piri Reis got his hands on them. Think about how insane that is for a second. We're talking about maps made during a time when most people thought the Earth was flat, and yet these maps show coastlines and geographical features with pinpoint accuracy. And it gets even wilder when you realize that these maps incorporate exact relative latitudes and longitudes. Now, calculating latitude is one thing. If you can track the sun's position, you can figure that out. But longitude? That's a whole different beast. Calculating longitude requires knowing the time when you started your journey and comparing it to the local noon at your current location. To do this accurately, you'd need a chronometer, a clock that could keep accurate time at sea, even with a ship's constant rocking. And here's the thing. Our civilization didn't invent a reliable marine chronometer until the late 1700s. Before that, sailors were constantly misjudging their positions, often sailing into coastlines they thought were hundreds of miles away. So how in the world did these ancient mapmakers include such precise longitudes on their maps? According to Hancock, this isn't just an anomaly, it's a sign. A sign that some advanced civilization, existing during the last ice age, had figured out how to calculate longitude, a feat we thought was impossible for people of that time. Hancock believes these maps hint at a whole lost culture of explorers who were mapping the world with a level of skill that rivals the achievements of later civilizations. Another fascinating piece of the puzzle is Antarctica, or rather, the curious absence of Antarctica from modern maps before 1818. You see, Antarctica was discovered in 1819, so any map made before that time logically shouldn't include it. But that's not the case. Some of these ancient maps depict Antarctica not only in the right location, but with details that suggest it was ice-free. That's right. Antarctica, the frozen continent we know today, appears on ancient maps in a form that suggests it was once green and habitable. This implies that whoever made these maps might have been around when Antarctica was ice-free, which would push the timeline back tens of thousands of years to the last ice age. This isn't just another ancient alien theory. This is hard evidence that's incredibly difficult to explain within the accepted narrative of human history. But if that's not enough to blow your mind, there's one more enigma to consider. The Bimini Road, located in the Bahamas. The Bimini Road is an underwater structure made up of large rectangular stones, almost like a road or pathway. Some people argue it's a natural formation, a result of geological processes that create these blocky shapes. But Hancock isn't so convinced. He thinks there's a good chance it's man-made, perhaps a construction of an ancient civilization that lived there when sea levels were much lower. What makes this even more intriguing is that the Bimini Road appears on some ancient maps, as if it were above water, indicating that whoever mapped it saw it in its full form, not submerged as it is today. Imagine what it would mean if these maps really were telling the truth. Imagine if, thousands of years ago, there was a civilization advanced enough to map coastlines, navigate vast oceans, and document parts of the world we thought were unknown. And yet, all this knowledge was somehow lost, erased from our collective memory, until fragments began resurfacing on old maps in the hands of curious explorers like Piri Reis. It's like these maps are whispering a secret to us, a secret that maybe we were never supposed to find out. Part 2. Ancient Maps and the Lost Civilization Theory. Let's pick up where we left off and dive deeper into the fascinating world of these ancient maps and the mysteries they reveal. In the last section, we explored the possibility that ancient cultures were far more advanced than we often give them credit for, potentially crossing vast oceans and mapping coastlines with a level of precision we typically associate with much later periods. It feels as though Musk, Hancock, and Rogan are urging us to re-examine history with a fresh perspective, encouraging us to step outside the traditional timeline and entertain a completely new way of thinking about our past. So let's talk about one of the biggest surprises on these ancient maps, Antarctica. Now, you and I know Antarctica as the frozen, uninhabitable continent at the bottom of the world. It's a place so extreme and icy that only scientists brave it, and even then, only in carefully managed stations. But here's the kicker. Antarctica didn't appear on any modern maps until it was officially discovered in 1819. That's when explorers finally stumbled upon it, and it began appearing on world maps for the first time. Before 1819, it's like Antarctica didn't exist in the eyes of cartographers. But that's where things get weird. These ancient maps, some dating back to the 1300s, show Antarctica in a way that suggests it wasn't always this icy wasteland. Instead, they show Antarctica as if it were a green, more habitable place, like it might have been during the last ice age, when global temperatures and sea levels were dramatically different. Think about it. If these maps are accurate, that means someone knew about Antarctica long before the modern world did, and they might have known it in a state we can't even imagine today. It's almost like they had access to a time machine. Or maybe they just lived during a time when Antarctica was very different. The fact that ancient maps show Antarctica raises a ton of questions. Who was making these maps, and how could they have possibly known about this distant, icy continent? Some researchers, like Hancock, think this is one of the biggest clues that an advanced civilization existed way back in prehistory during the last ice age. They believe this civilization might have had the technology, knowledge, and means to map coastlines far beyond what was possible for anyone else at that time. Now let's add another layer to this mystery, the Bimini Road. This is an underwater structure near the Bahamas, and it's as mysterious as it sounds. Imagine a long row of massive rectangular stones laid out almost like a pathway under the sea. For years, people have debated whether the Bimini Road is a natural formation or the remains of an ancient man-made structure. Some say it's just a coincidence of geology, while others, like Hancock, argue that it's way too structured to be a mere fluke of nature. To him, it looks like something constructed by human hands. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Bimini Road appears on some ancient maps as if it were above water. Let's break that down. If these maps are accurate, they were drawn at a time when the Bimini Road was above sea level. Today, it's submerged, only visible to divers and researchers exploring the ocean floor. The last time this area would have been dry land was during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower. So, if this structure is man-made, it means people were living in the Bahamas area and building large, complex structures tens of thousands of years ago. And if these people were skilled enough to build something like the Bimini Road, could they also have been capable of mapping the surrounding area? It's almost as if these maps are shouting at us. There is something more here. They seem to suggest that people were exploring, mapping, and maybe even building structures across the globe much earlier than our current history books allow. And that's exactly the kind of puzzle that fascinates Musk. He's someone who's always looking beyond the accepted norms, who's constantly questioning and pushing against the boundaries of what we think we know. So what does all this mean for the idea of lost civilizations? Hancock believes that these maps, the Bimini Road, and the accurate depictions of places like Antarctica are part of a bigger picture. He thinks there's a possibility that humanity has gone through cycles, rising to high levels of technology and culture, only to be wiped out by massive events like floods, earthquakes, or even shifts in climate. Imagine a civilization reaching heights similar to ours, but then being all but erased by some global catastrophe. Over time, most of their achievements would be forgotten, with only a few remnants, like these ancient maps, surviving to hint at their existence. This idea of a lost civilization isn't just fantasy. In fact, stories of advanced ancient societies appear in various cultures around the world. We've all heard of Atlantis, right? That's the legendary civilization that supposedly sank beneath the waves. For years, people dismissed Atlantis as just a myth, a story told by Plato to make a philosophical point. But Hancock and others think there might be a grain of truth in it. Atlantis, they suggest, could be one of many ancient cultures that rose and fell, leaving only a few tantalizing traces behind. Hancock even goes further by suggesting that the culture behind these maps could have been a global civilization, or at least a culture with widespread knowledge of the world. These people, whoever they were, might have been seafaring navigators, crossing oceans, trading ideas, and mapping coastlines. They might have even had connections with other ancient cultures, sharing knowledge and techniques that were then passed down, copied, and eventually preserved in maps like those of Piri Reis. This brings us back to the maps. Another intriguing detail Hancock discusses is the accuracy of latitude and longitude on these ancient maps. Now, we talked about this in part 1, but let's really think about it. Calculating longitude requires precise timing, something that's hard enough even today without the right tools. The fact that these ancient maps include accurate longitudes suggests that whoever made them had access to some kind of technology or knowledge that allowed them to measure distances and locations across the world. This wasn't just guesswork. They had to know what they were doing. Hancock compares this to our own civilization's technological breakthroughs, like the invention of the chronometer in the 18th century, which finally allowed sailors to accurately calculate longitude and avoid disastrous miscalculations at sea. But if an ancient civilization could do this thousands of years earlier, that means they were working with some serious technology, something that would challenge our assumptions about what was possible back then. And then there's the matter of who they were. This is where Musk's interest really comes into play. Musk has a knack for breaking down complicated problems and seeing things differently. He's not just curious about ancient mysteries for the sake of it. He sees connections. For him, uncovering lost knowledge could be about more than just understanding our past. It could hold clues for our future. What if ancient civilizations had developed technologies or scientific insights that we've lost? What if rediscovering those secrets could help us in our own pursuits, like Musk's goal of reaching Mars and building a self-sustaining human civilization there? The idea of an advanced Ice Age civilization might sound like science fiction, but Hancock believes it's a real possibility, and Musk seems willing to entertain this possibility as well, pushing us to question what we think we know about history and progress. Perhaps Musk sees this ancient global culture as a predecessor to what he's trying to achieve. A world where human beings aren't confined to one place or one set of limitations, but are exploring, mapping, and connecting across vast distances. And the more we look into these maps, the more intriguing details we find. Take, for example, the Pinkerton World Map, a famous map drawn in 1818 based on the latest geographical knowledge of the time. It's a beautiful piece of cartography, showing the world as it was understood then. But there's one glaring omission: Antarctica. It simply doesn't appear on the map. And why would it? At that time, Antarctica hadn't been discovered. So this begs the question: if maps from the 1300s and 1400s show Antarctica, what happened between those early maps and the Pinkerton map? Why did the knowledge of Antarctica disappear, only to be rediscovered centuries later? Part 3. Implications of Musk's revelation and the future of exploration. Here we are, at the final piece of this fascinating puzzle. So far, we've explored ancient maps that challenge the logic of history, mysterious underwater structures like the Bimini Road, and the bold idea that an advanced civilization might have thrived during the last ice age. But the big question remains: what does all of this mean for us today? And why is Elon Musk, a man known for his forward-thinking vision, so captivated by these ancient mysteries? Musk, Hancock, and Rogan aren't just discussing history for the sake of curiosity. They're pointing towards something much larger, something that could reshape how we understand our place in the world and redefine what's possible for humanity. Let's delve into this concept of lost knowledge. The idea that ancient civilizations might have possessed advanced technology and exceptional navigational skills isn't just a fascinating historical theory, it's a potential game-changer for the present. Musk, perhaps more than anyone, recognizes the immense value of rediscovering knowledge that has been forgotten or overlooked. The impact of ancient knowledge. In Musk's perspective, the secrets of the past might hold the key to addressing the challenges of the future. Just as our ancestors may have discovered ways to map coastlines and calculate longitudes without modern tools, who's to say there aren't other ancient innovations waiting to be rediscovered? Think about it. What if a long-lost civilization had advanced knowledge of energy, transportation, or even medicine that we've forgotten over time? These are the kinds of questions Musk appears eager to explore. While he spends his days focused on interplanetary travel and artificial intelligence, he also recognizes the critical value of learning from history. To him, ancient knowledge might hold clues that could propel us further and faster into the future. He's like a modern-day explorer, but instead of jungles or oceans, he's diving into the mysteries of the human past to find insights we might have missed. One area Musk is particularly interested in is the impact that lost civilizations and their knowledge might have had on global history. Hancock often talks about how mainstream archaeology tends to dismiss anything that doesn't fit the established timeline. For instance, they label things like the Bimini Road as natural formations or the Piri Reis map as just a coincidence. But Musk seems to push back against that kind of narrow thinking. In his mind, if there's even a small chance that a global seafaring civilization existed thousands of years ago, it's worth taking seriously. After all, if we're going to one day colonize other planets, shouldn't we first understand the full history of our own? This perspective challenges what we think we know about history. We're taught that civilization has progressed in a straight line. Primitive societies, then the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, and finally the advanced modern age we live in now. But what if history isn't a straight line? What if it's more like a cycle, with civilizations rising, achieving incredible things, and then falling, only for new civilizations to rise later? This cyclical view of history changes everything. It suggests that we might not be the first culture to reach a high level of knowledge and technology. Others may have come before us, only to be wiped out by natural disasters, shifts in climate, or other cataclysmic events. This leads to one of the biggest questions Musk and Hancock are raising. Why don't we know more about these ancient civilizations? If they really existed, where did all their knowledge go? If these people had the skills to navigate the globe, build complex structures, and even measure longitude, why aren't there more traces of them? Hancock suggests it might come down to one simple reason: time. Think about how much gets lost or destroyed over just a few hundred years. Now imagine that multiplied by tens of thousands of years. Artifacts degrade, cities crumble, and nature reclaims the land. Over time, almost everything can disappear. What we're left with are only the toughest remnants, stone structures and fragments of maps. But Musk doesn't believe we're powerless to uncover this hidden history. He's fascinated by the idea that there could still be evidence out there, just waiting to be found. Imagine how many archaeological sites are still unexplored, lying under layers of sediment or hidden beneath the ocean. Musk is the kind of person who sees these untouched places as opportunities, not obstacles. To him, there's a chance we could rediscover some of this lost knowledge and use it to inform our future. Take underwater archaeology, for example. If we really want to find evidence of a lost civilization, the oceans might be the best place to look. During the last ice age, sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than they are today. Whole coastlines that ancient people might have lived on are now submerged. Cities, ports, and monuments could be sitting on the ocean floor, preserved like time capsules. Hancock often talks about how little we've explored the ocean compared to the land, and Musk seems to agree that the seas might hold some of the biggest secrets to our past. And then there's Antarctica, the frozen continent that keeps cropping up in these ancient maps. Musk is fascinated by the idea that Antarctica might hold secrets of its own. Imagine if, under all that ice, there were ruins of an ancient civilization, a lost city frozen in time, waiting to be uncovered. Scientists have already found signs of ancient rivers and lakes beneath the ice, so it's not entirely far-fetched. Musk believes that if there's even a slim chance of discovering something groundbreaking, it's worth investigating. Some might wonder why Musk cares so much about ancient civilizations. He's a tech billionaire who's all about the future, right? But that's exactly the point. Musk's vision of the future includes learning from the past. He's on a mission to build a human settlement on Mars, create sustainable energy, and revolutionize transportation. But he's also keenly aware that knowledge doesn't always come from new inventions. Sometimes it comes from rediscovering what's been lost. In his eyes, ancient history isn't just a bunch of dusty old facts. It's a treasure chest of ideas that could inspire the next big leap in human progress. Let's not forget about the broader implications here. If an advanced civilization did exist in the distant past and was able to map the world with astonishing precision, it raises questions about how they viewed themselves in the world. Did they see themselves as explorers, just as we do? Did they look up at the stars and wonder about their place in the universe? Musk often talks about how humanity should be a multiplanetary species, spreading out into the cosmos. What if our ancestors had similar ambitions? Even if they didn't have rockets, what if their goal was to explore every corner of the Earth, to map every coastline, to understand their world just as we're trying to understand ours? Musk's interest in these ancient maps isn't just about uncovering the past for its own sake. It's about connecting with a deeper human story. It's about acknowledging that we're part of a long lineage of explorers, inventors, and dreamers. By understanding what came before us, Musk believes we can better shape what comes next. The secrets held in these ancient maps could be more than just relics. They could be guideposts, showing us what's possible when humanity dares to push beyond the boundaries of the known world. In the end, Musk, Hancock, and Rogan's exploration of these ancient mysteries is a call to action. They're encouraging us to look beyond the conventional narrative, to question the limits we've placed on our understanding of history. They're saying, don't just accept what you're told. Ask questions, dig deeper, and be open to the possibility that there's more to the story. Musk's fascination with these maps is a reminder that curiosity is a powerful force. It's what drives discovery. Whether we're exploring the depths of the ocean, the frozen reaches of Antarctica, or the distant planets of our solar system. So where do we go from here? Maybe it's time for us to take Musk's lead and look at the world with a fresh perspective. Maybe it's time to consider that our ancestors were more than just primitive people struggling to survive. Maybe they were explorers, scientists, and thinkers in their own right. People who had insights into the world that we're only just beginning to rediscover. As Musk has shown, the journey of discovery isn't just about moving forward. It's also about looking back, learning from those who came before us, and using their knowledge to inspire a brighter future. Who knows what other discoveries await us as we keep digging deeper? The ancient world map Musk references might just be the starting point. If we continue to ask bold questions, explore uncharted territories, and challenge the limits of what we think we know, who's to say what other incredible mysteries could emerge? In the end, the past and the future are more intertwined than we often realize, and it's up to us to bridge that gap. What do you think about all this? Share your thoughts in the comments below.